Good form. Surprisingly good form. Oh, do we need the music, though?
Come on, baby.
No. All right.
NBA crises. Russ Westbrook versus the fan. Ibaka versus Chris. Kyrie Irving versus Kyrie Irving. And also the day in the NFL. Look at the number here, $1.2 billion. Woo!
The GDP of Granada.
I can't wait for all those contracts to
away.
break down and people to hold out now. That's great.
I swear to God. You up. You and your wife. You up.
My man and his wife in the stands told me to get down on my knees like he used to. And for me, that's just completely disrespectful to me. I think it's racial. I think it's just inappropriate.
I just told him, I'm like, just sit down and ice your knees, bro. And he turned to me and he's like, that's heat. And I'm like, well, you're gonna need it. And then it turned into not safe for work.
Frank Isola, we'll start with you. How do you consider how it all went down? What type of problem does the NBA have here, and how do they solve it?
Well, there is a history between Russell Westbrook and the fans in Utah in that same spot, that corner right near the bench. It happened last year during their playoff series. And I think for Russell Westbrook, I think he could have helped himself out here if he didn't go back and threaten the wife when he says, you know, I'm going to mess you up and your wife. I think that's crossing the line. But I think the NBA, the Thunder, and the Jazz security, they have to be on high alert here. And if someone's getting out of line among the fans, that person has to be thrown out of the building. They were handing out code of conduct cards yesterday to people that were seated near the bench. So this was something that everyone was aware of, but I'm not so sure everyone handled it the right way.
Spain?
Yeah, I think we can all agree that when you buy a ticket to a game, that doesn't mean you're allowed to just say whatever you want without repercussion. Right. But on the same side of things, I think you can be expecting this sort of thing at professional games. And I'm surprised every time an athlete blows his lid over something like this. These guys don't really know your mother. They probably don't know anybody in your family they're talking about. And I know it's not pleasant, but they need to control themselves. The NBA has a problem both with players interacting and owners, James Dolan, interacting with the crowd, but also with the fans. And because of the nature of the sport, they're so close to you. There are no restrictions between the fans and the players. They need to do a better job of keeping people like this from speaking out in the ways that they are that are offensive and make the game experience bad for those around them, but also talk to the players about how they just got to let things roll off their back a little bit more. You can't have Russell Westbrook yelling at fans, male or female, like that.
Bob Ryan.
Neither party comes off looking well here. The fan should be advised you don't need to engage in that type of dialogue with a player. You know, good-natured heckling is fine. There was a famous fan in Detroit years ago, Leon the Barber, that everyone in the league knew. But what he did when he heckled players was in good spirit and not vulgar and not profane and not you know, overtly personal. And that's a level we can tolerate. But this is not a level. They don't need this. And as far as Russell Westbrook's concerned, you know, by cursing back, swearing back at the guy, dragging in his wife. I mean, it just an overreaction that he should be long enough in his career now to understand that these idiot fans exist, and he should know by now how to handle them better.
Mina Kimes.
I agree with everyone that Westbrook should have let it roll off his back. But if, in fact, the fan said something racist or homophobic, as he's alleging, these things are not the same. There's no parity between those sorts of attacks, and the fans should not be allowed back in the NBA arena if they can establish that that indeed happened. Now, to Frank's point about this happening to Westbrook in Utah before, this has happened to other players in Utah. This is a trend, and it's an alarming one. It's obviously not all the fans or even a majority of the fans, but it's becoming enough of a thing where the NBA needs to monitor it very closely, and security needs to get involved earlier.
Security on high alert. We heard this. This has happened with players and fans in Utah before, and it's happened with Russell Westbrook elsewhere before. So, Sarah, Spain, what does the NBA do?
Well, I mean, one thing that's worth noting is that this guy claims he intentionally had someone filming the exchange, and he sent it to people working in social media to make sure everyone saw it. This was premeditated. And fans who are coming in with the goal of trying to do this need to, like Mina said, be dealt with in a manner that's beyond just handing them a card that says, you know, we've been warned.
That's a good point, Sarah. And all the reporting or not so factual reporting, because now there's a lot of muddied look here on who this fan is and what he does. But if you could put all that to the side, Frank Isola, and judge it from the NBA's perspective, how are they going to walk away from this?
Well, this is a tough one. I think what Bob brought up a great point. You know, it's one thing for it to be, you know, heckling and in good nature. And I think what Sarah said about this fan, they were trying to do this. And now everyone has a camera on their cell phone and they're trying to record it because now they want to become part of the story. So I think Adam Silver is a fine, probably going to be in order. I'm not even so sure about that. I think that Adam Silver in the league will talk to Russell Westbrook. I don't think there's going to be a suspension.
So you say no suspension for Westbrook. Bob, suspension for Westbrook here?
I don't know that we even have all the facts yet. No, I'm
okay.
trying.
Sarah Spain, are we looking at a fine here for Westbrook?
I say just a fine.
Mina Kimes?
Just a fine.
Just a fine.
We'll move on.
Yeah, I agree.
NFL deals. Look at these numbers. Over $1.2 billion total spent in 24 hours. But look at the grades from Bill Barnwell. This is hilarious to me. Tough grader. I mean, there was one B in there. We're going to start with Nick Foles here, and I'm going to start with you, Mina Kimes. We had this conversation last week. When would this deal go from being a good deal to being maybe not a good deal? 4 years, $88 million from Jacksonville. That too much for you, or you think that's just right?
It's way too much. Okay, so a few weeks ago, we did an NFL Insiders panel trying to anticipate what the contract in Jacksonville for Foles, it's always been Jacksonville, would be. We all agreed it'd be about $40 million. Total, not guaranteed, okay? I mean, it's insane, okay? And it's insane because Jacksonville did not appear to be competing against other teams. The quarterback market had shaken out so that Denver had Flacco, Washington had Case Keenum. They were bidding against themselves. I have no idea why they bid so much, even though I understand why they wanted Nick Foles in particular.
Spain on Foles in Jacksonville?
Yeah, I like the signing. This is a team that still had a top 5 DPOA defense despite us criticizing the defensive side of the ball, and they very clearly needed to improve their offense and get a better quarterback. I like the signing. I like Nick Foles. I have no idea why they paid him so much. This is a guy who at one point was like, maybe I'll just retire, or I'll take $50 million guaranteed. Great.
Frank Isola, you had Nick Foles going to Jacksonville weeks ago. Did you have him going for that much guaranteed?
It's a lot of money. I think Mina and Sarah are being a little unfair here. This guy did win 4 playoff games. He's won a road playoff game. He should have beaten New Orleans. He's won a Super Bowl, for crying out loud. A lot of those guys aren't on the market, and he has leverage because Jacksonville, like every team in the NFL, is about winning now. And look what happened to their season because of their quarterback last year. This was something that they had to do, and Tom Coughlin knows a little something about quarterbacks. I think it's a great move. And I don't care about
Mina's face when you said Tom Coughlin knows a little something about quarterbacks. You look like Adam.
He won 2 Super Bowls.
Look like Adam Gase there for a second. Bob Wright, how about you?
All right, let's say they overpaid Foles by 10 or 15%. I don't care. They needed to upgrade. Bortles had more turnovers than any quarterback in the league the last few years. All right, but I want to talk about the whole generality of the topic here, about the money that was being spent. This is nothing new, folks, in the history of sport. The only difference is the exact sum of money we're talking about. This has happened in other sports. The TV money is there. They got to spend it on somebody. People are available. Only who's available. They have to throw the money around. They overpay people. This is nothing new. It's happened in every sport. Number 2, in football, the money of guaranteed money versus the total money of all these sums is so vastly different. And in the end, they're not going to. It doesn't matter whether they say $1 billion if it's only
I agree with you wholeheartedly, Bob.
And that's a very important point here.
But the other important point here is, well, what did we just do for the last? Let's stretch it out to 9 months, all right? It's Pittsburgh Steelers not paying Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell not signing. He's a running back. Running back peak years or before the pay structure actually benefits them. Antonio Brown this week as well, Mina Kimes. So the salary cap dead hit that Pittsburgh is going to take is the worst in the history of the sport. And then one day later, $1.2 billion. How do you process that?
It's a product of circumstances. Okay, so it reminds me a little bit of the cap spike in the NBA of years ago where, the cap went up and all these teams suddenly spent a ton of money, which is not to say Trent Brown is Tyler Johnson or anything like that, but these teams do have a lot of money and there aren't a ton of stars. There aren't a lot of quarterbacks. All the elite pass rushers got franchised, so that money has to go somewhere because in the NFL, there's not just a cap, there's a cap floor on a rolling basis. These teams do need to spend. It's fine, I think, as long as they're spending on getting good players they need. It's a problem when they're devoting a ton of resources to, a mediocre player.
Anybody else want to answer the money side of it, the pay structure? Sarah, you can hit it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if I were a player that didn't deserve a bunch of money and I knew teams had to spend it anyway, I'd be doing what AB is doing. And I'd be like, all right, let me get out of this deal and get more money. Well, you mentioned the dead cap hit. What's funny to me is that the Jags, everyone's going to talk about how much they're paying Foles and ignore that they're eating $16.5 million of dead cap space on Bortles, who they didn't need to re-up last year. I think you've called it before in the past, Tony, Bortles and shame. Well, it's doubled now because now they're paying. He's not even going to play.
Yeah. Isola, you want to address that?
And now this is the year that you need a good agent because, like Mina said, there aren't the stars out there, but guys are getting star money. So all we ever hear people is complain about that NFL players aren't getting paid what they deserve. This was the year to be a free agent because you're getting paid this year.
What did Kyle Long just say when he was called the most overpaid player in Chicago? Well, shout out to my agent. Bob, let me ask you a question. Well, maybe in your local jurisdiction here. The Detroit Lions have signed 3 New England Patriots. Trey Flowers, Danny Amendola, Justin Coleman, to go with Matt Patricia and GM Bob Quinn. So is this a plan for Patriots Midwest, Bob? And what do you think of it?
I think that people are going to misread this. I think it's totally circumstantial. I think that Trey Flowers just happened to be available, and that's that. And he's the guy. It could have been some guy from Green Bay. No, it happened to be Trey Flowers. That's all. I don't. And it's not just a matter that Patricia knew him. I just think they recognize he was the best available pass rusher out there. Danny Amendola is a quality veteran receiver that fulfills a certain role. Coleman's got a.
I got a whole panel of people shaking their head no here. Go ahead, Mina Kimes.
Oh, no, I just, Amendola, Justin Coleman, they've got history with the Patriots as well. Trey Flowers, very good player, bit of an overpay. They needed a pass rusher, but the idea that it makes them like the Patriots is funny to me because, if anything, this signing actually made the Patriots more like the Patriots. This is what they do. They get a guy, they let him go, they get a comp pick for him, and they don't overpay him. That's the New England way.
Yeah, I mean, I like the Flowers deal for them, even if it is a little bit of an overpay, because at the number 8 spot, they're now not competing with other teams for defensive ends. They can go out and fill other holes, and they do get a good player in Flowers. But like Mina said, the reason that ex-Pats don't always work is because usually the Pats know when to let go of a guy and when to stop offering him the money. So just having a GM and a coach and a bunch of players from there doesn't make it win.
Isola.
Man, you guys are tough. I mean, come on. Of course you want to get, the Patriots DNA. It happens in every single sport where coaches will bring in certain players that they're comfortable with. Remember last year we did a story on the show about Matt Patricia bringing the players out onto the field when it was snowing, and heaven forbid he did that. This is about trying to sell his program with players that are familiar with him and vice versa.
The reason why expats don't usually work, Sarah Spain, the reason why expats don't usually work is because they hang out at Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville in some foreign country, and they should be doing something. All right, I don't know where I'm going with that. There's a joke at the end of that. Buy or sell is next. As we roll out here, I want to roll up here. Take a look at my man Zidane, all right? Rolling up those jeans. Look at, how do you pull that off?
Where do you find
Italy in the World
Buy or sell on the other side.
We both know you're not just looking for pork.
17th.
Start, buy, or sell with the quote game. Tell me who said this. The way I've handled things, it hasn't been perfect.
The
Woody
Steelers.
Page.
Woody.
Woody Page? Points for everybody for that. Kyrie Irving. He said it to Yahoo and Chris Haynes. I made a lot of mistakes. Take full responsibility. I apologize. For me, I think because of how I fixated on trying to prove other people wrong, got into a lot of habits that were bad, like reading stuff and reacting emotionally. This is fascinating to me. Mina Kimes, buy or sell the self-realization from Kyrie Irving?
I'm buying everything that he said, but I'm selling it in the context of everything he's been saying and will continue saying. Kyrie's right. There's a problem with the media. The problem is his relationship with the media. He alternates between being a scold and oversharing. And I understand it's difficult in 2019 to be a star in the NBA and be watched and talked about and discussed like a reality program, but other players seem to be having an okay time with it. Kyrie is uniquely struggling with this.
Sarah Spain, how'd you read that?
I don't know if it's unique. Kevin Durant seems to have the same issue, and the problem is that they're conflating media with social media. All the things that they think they're being asked and interviewed about, half the time they're digesting fans and blog writers and every Joe Blow. Kyrie coming to the realization that he's making things harder on himself, that he's being antagonistic, that he's looking for people to blame for what's going on is a big realization for him. I don't know if it's fixed. I don't know if he'll keep making steps in the right direction, but at least for now, he's headed the right way.
Right, guys, Sola?
And he seems to be making sense. I think really what was a bad look for him was walking into the arena before that game against Houston. He got mad that the camera was in his face. And then you have the commissioner of the league saying players are generally unhappy. Charles Barkley says that Kyrie's miserable. Somebody got to Kyrie. What he said here made a lot of sense.
Bob Ryan?
In Boston in year 2, we've already got Kyrie fatigue. I tell people every time you see his mouth open, put your hands over your ears. It sounded very nice, okay? It was yesterday's Kyrie. We don't know who today's Kyrie will be or July's Kyrie will be. He's got a long way to go before he truly figures out who he wants to be. I have to say, I'm selling it. I'm skeptical.
We'll move on. Buy or sell 2, NBA Confrontation Part 2 from last night. The fight between Serge Ibaka and Marquise Chris. There was a neck grab in there. And then haymakers. And because this is the NBA, very little connecting of said haymakers. Sarah Spain, how does this get sorted out by the league?
Well, what's the bigger L, you think? All those whiffed punches or losing to Cleveland by 25 points? Either way, Ibaka's in trouble because he's already gotten suspended for a couple games for being in fights in the past, and this is going to probably be a little bit more than one game now that he's in yet another altercation.
Marquise Chris, a young player, said something that upset Serge Ibaka. You cannot react like that. Jim Jones, the Cavaliers broadcaster, brought up a great point. This is such a bad play by Ibaka because your team is fighting for home court advantage in the playoffs, and you're going to get suspended. I say he gets 3. Marquise Chris gets 1 game.
Bob Ryan, how about you?
I don't care what he said. You get a multiple game suspension for a multiple recidivist like Ibaka. He's got to grow up.
I think I just won the pool. I knew multiple recidivist was going to be said by Bob Ryan. All right. And Mina Kimes, how about you?
Yeah, this is his 3rd fight, which actually feels kind of low. I agree with everyone. He's going to get at least 3 games, considering Brandon Ingram got 4 earlier in the year in Ibaka's repeat offensives. They're 2.5 games back, so this is bad for the team.
Buy or sell 3, back to the NFL. Teddy Bridgewater saying no to Miami and a chance to stay in New Orleans and back up Drew Brees. That was according to Jane Slater, NFL Network. Not sure if there was ever actually an offer from Miami, but Frank, buy or sell Bridgewater here?
You know, Mina Kimes was all over this last year, said he looked great in camp with the Jets. He's on New Orleans. He must believe that he's going to be taking over for Drew Brees at some point with a good coach. I think it's a smart move.
Let me ask you that. Do you think that's reality, that he could be the heir to Drew Brees' throne here?
Well, how old is Drew Brees? At some point, he's going to have to go away. Teddy Bridgewater must honestly feel he has a legitimate chance to eventually start.
Bob Ryan?
Why else would he stay?
I'm buying. Number one, Miami's not particularly appealing right now. Number two, Sean Payton's a quality coach. Number three, he's 26 years old playing behind a 40-year-old quarterback. Number four, he respects that guy. Maybe he thinks he's going to learn something. And number five, maybe he just happens to like Cajun food and Zydeco.
Okay. You need about 10 more points there, Bob, but I was very impressed. You made it all the way. Kimes, how about you?
I'm buying it. Look, Teddy wants to be a starter, but Miami is not a team that's ready for him to succeed as a starter. He could easily flame out there. It's a huge risk. Also, obviously, it's a risk that Breeze doesn't retire soon, but I'm sure he knows a little bit more about that timeline than us.
Number 6, culture. Number 7, weapons in New Orleans. Number 8, locker room fit. Number 9, beignets. And number 10, maybe afraid of Adam Gase's eyes.
Okay, Adam Gase now, not with Miami anymore. Okay, with the Jets.
Well, he does play twice a year.
Oh, the Jets.
So, you're going the wrong way.
He took his eyes to the Jets.
You're going the wrong way. You had the wrong team. But it's not enough to knock off Spain. Isola and Ryan, you lose a few points. And if you've lost points before, what does that make you? A multiple recidivist, Bob Ryan. Okay, here we go. Time Spain showdown on the other side. You almost lost it there, Spain.
Jets.
Almost lost
I'm in Miami. I got confused. I went to live.
Sarah Spain, good luck in showdown. Quote game again. I yelled at Joey. Everybody heard the yelling, and then they wouldn't go anymore. We camped here. Who said it?
Chandler, Russ.
No, Musher, Nicholas Petit.
Oh.
He was leading the Iditarod, and now he's not. The dogs started fighting with each other and with him. Make sense of this, Mina Kimes.
Well, I just wonder if it's a dog named Joey. If he yelled at him, he called him Joseph. To the surprise of no one, I am on the dog's side. Those guys work hard.
Yeah, listen, if the dogs decided to take a break, I need to hear their side of the story. We have only heard from this musher. Joey might have a story to tell, and I'd like to hear it.
I don't think we got to the bottom of that story, but I appreciate the analysis. We'll move on. Showdown 2. Check out Miguel Cabrera here. This is the hidden ball trick. And the question is, fair or foul, or wise or foolish to use up your hidden ball trick in spring, Sarah?
I mean, it's a little bush league. It's spring training. Like, let the guy get up and stand back on the base. Definitely save that for a real game.
Oh, look, some people say Miggy's contract is an albatross. I say that's what 35 years gets you, that kind of trick. It's like a dad move.
Yeah, but you might be able to save it for the regular season, not spring training. Sarah, Spain. Look at all those clutch points. And the FaceTime.
Well, I'm here in Miami, and it's the kind of place that makes you forget that Adam Gase went to the Jets. And it's the kind of place where you end up at Fontainebleau, leaving Liv with a bit of a drunk face and anger when people try to take your photo. Conor McGregor arrested for smashing a guy's phone and then taking it with him, so some sort of aggravated robbery charges. His plea deal is supposed to have him keeping out of trouble, doing community service. This is going to be a problem for him. Next time, just smile, take the drunk photo. Don't smash the phone. You're just giving them better footage of you drunk, angry, leaving. Doesn't matter. UFC won't do anything about it anyway.
Get the...
Sarah, you had the Friends reference before, Joey and Chandler. Who's the Joey and who's the Chandler of Isola and Ryan?
Isola's a Phoebe, actually. Totally in the universe. And Bob Ryan's definitely
We'll see you
Rachel. Look
tomorrow.
at that haircut.
Pardon the interruption, but I'm